So we're going to just the second part, and it's relatively quick, if I'm brutally honest. But we're going to talk to you a bit about private cloud. A couple of questions to ask you about private cloud. A little bit about unified device management, because it's so cool. And definitely a little bit of a good conversation about automation and integration. If you haven't filled in your feedback forms, do so before the end of the session. I'll take the fact that you're just looking down and ticking them. It's okay. I'll get through it. But if you just make sure you hand them to Dave or myself, or leave them at the back of the room before we leave, they are important to us. So we do like to read them and see what we can do better and so on and so forth. So let's talk private cloud. How many people in the room think they have a private cloud? So you think you have a private cloud. Are you sure you have a private cloud, or do you have an optimized data center?
I would say I have both.
You would say you have both. No, you're not really sure. That's very on the fence.
No, I have both. I have an optimized data center and a cloud.
Sorry?
I have an optimized data center and a cloud.
And a cloud. This is going to be cool. Anyone else think they have a cloud? Or have their heads in their cloud?
We have what we call a cloud, but I'm expecting to find out now.
So one of the things really interesting in one of the themes in obviously MMS, it's the Management Summit. We want to talk our tools, we want to talk our cloud stack, we want to talk all these wonderful bits and pieces. But it was really getting down to the nitty gritty about an optimized data center, which is very pretty and nice and huggable and all great, but not a cloud. There's clouds in the sky, there's Azure, there's all these different types of clouds, but the optimized data center is not a cloud. So the question you have to ask yourself is, does your cloud have any of these attributes, or all of these attributes? Because if it doesn't have all these attributes, you're not a cloud, you're just a pretty optimized data center.
All of those attributes.
You sure now?
Positive.
Oh, cool. We're going to get into something more detailed in a second then. So you have to have all these attributes and these guys to be a cloud. Now, do you have a cloud? Apart from you, because we'll get to it in a minute. So who has a cloud in their data center? No? You have an optimized data center? Very pretty, huggable. Go inside, look at pretty lights and go, whoa, fantastic optimized data center, but not a cloud. So, in order to get to cloud, you have to start thinking strategy. Yes, we know, boring. Why do I have to think strategy? It goes back to one of your questions, Martin. It's all about a journey. It's all about making sure the customer is really focused on that end goal and maintaining the fact that whether you're an IT admin working for a business or whether you're a consultant working for a customer, that they are focused on the end goal so they don't lose fact of it. Private clouds will eventually save you money, and I say eventually because it's not an easy journey. There's tons of stuff you can do. You have to look at this stuff. You have to get to a consolidated. You have to go to optimized data center. You have to go virtualize. You have to go make all your stuff cost efficient, not just from your hardware where you have to upgrade, but then you have to look at your power management strategies and all these other wonderful bits that start pulling in. Not an easy journey. Self-service, do you really trust your users to go in and deploy the right VM? Do you want your users to deploy a right VM? Or do you want a optimized workflow to be able to do a VDI pool to suddenly do an expansion? What does self-service mean to you? What does elasticity mean to you? Can your environments or are your applications able to grow at will? Or have you got the same problem as anyone else, that they were coded back in the 1980s and no one ever wants to change them because the developer is dead? Sorry, developer. These are the problems, these are the real tangible effects that when we go in and look at private cloud, or people who say they have private clouds or cloud environments, these are the things. I can't self-service my line of application. Why? Because it was written on bloody Pascal many, many years ago and will only run in Windows 3.1. Damn, many pharmaceutical companies still run like that. It's very scary, isn't it, the drugs you take? So, question you then ask yourself is, do you really have a private cloud? If you can't exhibit the attributes of a private cloud, and here's a particular list. We want you to kind of agree, and this slide was, this guy basically went off and interviewed about 100 different companies around the world and said, what do you think are the attributes that make up a private cloud? And you have to exhibit at least 5 of them to be a private cloud. So they asked loads of questions on what's high, what's high on your list, what's low on your list, tick anywhere. So can you meet the access anywhere? Any device, anywhere? Cool, I like you. Can it be all browser based? Cool. Is it on the Microsoft stack? I see, there we go. Yeah, I was getting worried there. Oh. Oh, excuse me, I have 2 clouds. I'm just jealous, I have to be honest. I don't have 2 clouds. So, they came up with this kind of list of the 15 attributes which kind of exhibit a private cloud. And you have to have at least some of them. They reckon about 5 in order to be a proper private cloud. Now you can go on to NIST and have a look at the queries on what NIST will all provide and so on and so forth if you want. And there's all sorts of weird and wonderful definitions of what a private cloud is, and the self-service, the elasticity, automation, standardization, all these wonderful bits and pieces. But realistically, look at what you have. Do you have any of these attributes in your optimized data center? You have some of them. You have an optimized data center. Pretty nice, not offending your optimized data center. I'm sure you put up a lot of work into that. I'm sure you spend lots of Friday nights sweating over your optimized data center and making it look good. It's not a cloud. Sorry. Now, don't get offended. It can get to a cloud. You just have to think strategy. Think of the end goal. Think of where you're actually going. So, for example, give you one of these, like metering and chargeback. I don't think I've come across one organization in Ireland that really gives a crap about metering and chargeback. They all say they want it. And they go, need to be able to charge back, but when they actually get to do it, the politics inside the organization is too complicated. But it's not a bad thing to be able to record at one point when you go back as an IT admin or an IT consultant and sort of say, well, we need more money to increase things, chargeback becomes important. So it's a feature and it's a tribute that you actually have to pay attention. Self-service management, well, I'm still on the wall about that because, to be honest with you, I don't trust end users. But if you do a good enough job and you spend a lot of time working this out, and a lot of time on your strategy to get to the point of where you want to be at self-service, well, then you'll design everything properly underneath so this is not going to be a problem and people won't make stupid mistakes on your infrastructure.
You would have said that along with self-service, you should have had a service catalog so that users could deploy standard items from a list.
So
if you can,
this
maybe put it in service management.
and it goes between the 2 things. So there is the service catalog is important, but that goes into kind of more. So there's a trend happening between device management and considering a device as a PC or a laptop or your mobile device or something like that versus data center management. And there's a significant split down in Microsoft that this is happening. So all the config manager guys, you're going to be unified device management guys. Fantastic. All the system center guys with SCOM and orchestrator and all those bits and pieces, you're going to be data center guys. Okay, so there is a defined split. Continuity, or what will a cloud be without continuity, for example? Yeah, it's like security. Many people think of security. Or did you think of it as an afterfact? You put it in. Or how many, especially in financial institutions where you have to fight your security guys because they're still living back in the 1970s and you just go no to everything because they don't want the hassle. And I know where you guys work, so I know them very well. So my point B is, multi-tenancy, is that really a big issue in Ireland? I don't think it's a big issue in Ireland. Multi-tenancy is fine for hosters. If your hoster is fantastic, multi-tenancy, but most of the time you're going to try and run off one AD and one infrastructure. Why? Because it's easier. Lots of people had the great ideas a few years ago of creating multiple different forests and multiple different AD domains for segregation and management purposes, and then they realized it was a pain. And now they're consolidating all back into a single AD infrastructure. My colleague Andrew, who was here yesterday, spends so much time going around to companies in Ireland trying to collapse domains, AD domains, from thousands of domains down to a few that's manageable, because people made really intelligent decisions without, as Kevin would put it, RTFM, or having a strategy, an overall strategy. So there's lots of things we can potentially do, and it's cool. But if you don't kind of have some of these attributes, what I'm trying to get at is you have a nice, pretty optimized data center, but you don't have a cloud. Okay? They have to exhibit some of these particular attributes. So, marketing slide, fantastic, we're great. We've done this for a long time. We've been doing Azure for quite a while now. Any learnings we do in Azure, we apply to the Windows Server product, System Center, we take it all, we try to learn. And you'll notice as things going forward and all the different products and different iterations and service releases that are happening in the generation of products, certain things are changing and they're all adopting certain parts of Azure. For example, if you look at Link, it has a thing called Windows Fabric. Windows Fabric is an Azure technology component which does all sorts of replications for data. Didn't know that then, did you? My point being is the lessons it's not just faff, marketing faff that we like to stand up here and say, yeah, we learn our lessons in the cloud and then we'll give it to you and then I learn the real lessons. No, we learn our lessons in the cloud. We break a lot of stuff in the cloud. We spend a lot of time looking at the support queues and what's going on and the teams that interact and how it all works. We know this stuff. We know it very well. We admit we don't have the answers for everything. But that's part of the reason why the products are released out to the public, because we need to know these things. You give us this information. Feedback to us, give us constructive feedback, not just it's crap. Crap doesn't work. It's like, you know, you can do it to your wife. Wife, your dinner was crap. Actually try something different, wife. You might get hit first, but the point being is you won't have a good dinner tomorrow night because she won't understand that you're not supposed to put a whole bag of salt into the thing. So, this has been around for a generation of IT people. You all understand this? Basic, probably where most people are. Most IT, so having a clue, just bung a server in and we'll see what happens. If you think you have process, fantastic. Process only works if you go back and update it. Because what you were doing a year ago doesn't necessarily work today. Process, service management, all this stuff is a life cycle. And this is the thing that you have to spend time educating your customers. Because as you develop their mindsets in the fact that they have to develop a life cycle and constant reiteration of managing this stuff and constant revisiting and sort of saying, is this good for the environment now? Is this going to provide value for what I'm doing now? Is it meeting my needs? Is it doing all these wonderful bits that I want it to do? You're never going to get anywhere. Because you're going to still be at the same thing, hitting the same problems with the same frustrations, with the same customers going, I don't want to spend money because it's getting me nowhere. Why? Because they never revisited the original process to actually make the thing bloody work. So most people are here. This is where you need to start. You need to start on a standardized IT infrastructure. If you don't start on standardized IT, what happens? You go back to, let's plug a server in and see what happens. I'll build it this way, and then your IT infrastructure admins come over and kind of go, what? Who built that server? Oh, he's a so on and so forth. I have to limit my cursing, you know, because Kevin just, you know, went RTFM too much and I have to be politically correct. So when you're kind of getting to this, then you're kind of going into a rationalized data center, you're introducing automation. Give me a good reason why not to introduce automation, apart from trying to save your job because you're lazy. And you think you're actually, you think people actually care about the fact that you're employed for a company and sit there and make that click every Friday evening, if you do make that click every Friday evening. Give me a good reason not to introduce automation. Why is it overly complex? If it's not maintained, so it goes back to a whole life cycle management. You getting the point around private cloud? So private cloud is a living, breathing entity. Like if you don't eat every day, you die. Simple. Same with your private cloud. If you don't maintain it, and this goes back to SCOM, this goes back to Service Manager, this goes back to all these bits and pieces, it's extra revenue stream for partners and consultants if you can get the idea and the principles across about lifecycle management. What's happening in Windows this year? Anyone know what's being released later on this year? Windows Blue. What's the big thing about Windows Blue? Apart from my lovely t-shirt. Well, apart from the 0.1, the 8.1, that's, oh, I can't believe it, that feature. And apart from maybe the start menus coming back, in a good way, the fact is the life cycle is changing for the applications. The way our development teams work are completely different. We're going to a model of where we're going to a dynamic IT model. So every couple of months you're going to get new features. Look at Azure, look at Office 365, look at our online services right now. This is what you need to be looking at in terms of how you develop customers. Maybe not in such short spaces. Maybe that's not practical for customers. But in a longer term thing, if you were going back every 6 months and making sure the environment and the process and all those bits and pieces were updated regularly enough, one, it justifies your job. Hey, I'm employed. But two, you're actually getting value for your money inside your IT infrastructure. Make sense? All happy? Enthused? I know it's late in the day, and it's Tuesday, but we're getting there. So you're getting into things like, now you're fully automated management. Wouldn't it be cool? How many people have to log on to some servers on a Sunday evening just to reboot a service to kind of make sure the application's running from Monday morning? Isn't that a pain? You see, there's one, yeah, you see, didn't think there was someone in the audience. There's always someone in, sorry? Well, you see, there's always these strange, quirky situations with inside IT environments that have developed over time that you can do nothing about, and you have no choice but to burden yourselves. And it's a burden to fix them before on a Sunday night or a Friday night at 2 in the morning. I know, I've been through it. I went through it with a lot of different data centers. It's as simple as that. I don't want to do it. What do I want to do? I want to get an automated solution so it restarts that service for me so I don't have to look. And then I want to check out to make sure it all happens. If a patch goes on, I want to be able to patch 64 node cluster because we can do 64 node clusters. I don't want to sit there going patch, patch, patch. How many people manually do WSUS? How much time does that take? Except the fully automated. See, your private cloud material here, right here now.
Give us the money.
Dave, have you got budget left? So hopefully you get my point and where I'm getting this. So here we go. Let's build a private cloud. So we'll start all the way over here. Extreme standardization. Why? Drives costs down. Think car manufacturing. Why can they manufacture? Well, I can't say cars are cheap in Ireland, but they're supposed to be. Think car manufacturing. The reason why they can do things like so cheaply in a lot of relative cases is the fact that they mass produce it. It's standard. The parts are standard. They bloody change it. You'll probably find your engine that's in your cars in probably 3 or 4 different models of the car with a different badge. Makes the engine cheap, or ish maybe. But in terms of IT, you can imagine, like, you know, Dell servers, you have a rack of Dell servers. It's easy. You want to get a NIC card, it serves 50 different Dell servers. Great, perfect. Motherboards, same thing. You can have all these parts and spares if you want in a large scale enterprise if you go to standardization. The best part then is training your IT pros. Someone mentioned it again about upskilling of the individual. I think it was yourself, was it? The upskilling of the individuals to be able to support this environment. In standardization, it just happens. Why? Because it's the same kit. What does that green light mean? Well, it means exactly the same on the other 50 servers, and if you haven't figured that out, you're fired. Simple. Yeah. So, do we agree on standardization? Standardization good? Fantastic. And I'm not talking about mobile phones and devices. I do realize to bring your own device strategy, but this is private cloud, so we'll wait till unified device management to talk about that stuff. Anyway, baseline and health management. Honestly, now I mean honestly, how many people have actually truly baseline their actual system and understand the characteristics of the performance? Have a look around. Seriously, no one. So, hands on heart, how many people can say that their system is in optimal health right now? I do it for a living, so I know these things. But that's what I do. Is part of the reason of PFE was we do a lot of performance stuff, so we understand all that Windows performance counter stuff, and actually understand that the wavy line is not just pretty and you can put it into different colors, but it actually means something. So guys, and I'm brutally honest, if you're not baselining your environments, there's a very simple utility called PAL, Performance Analysis Log. Download it. It gives you all the templates for the performance counters on all sorts of different workloads, and you can run against your environment and baseline your environment to figure out what is normal operation. If you don't know what normal operation is, how do you know it is broken? If you don't know it's broken, how can you standardize? You can't. So you don't have a private cloud. You have an optimized data center, or at least on the road to an optimized data center. So baseline, can't stress it enough. If you don't baseline your environment, throw your kit out. No, maybe not throw your kit out, just baseline it. Understand it, but understand baseline. Baseline and baseline and baseline, and can't repeat it enough. We're getting onto a bit more people. Service management. You need to become accountable for what you do, or IT. Well, normally we are, you're going, you broke it. That's not really accountable. You know, but what you want to be able to sort of say, well, yeah, I did break it, but it'll be back up in 3 hours. 3 hours becomes more accountable because now you actually have the business understand that. You tell the business this. How many people are consultants here whose company have service level agreements with your customers and your partners and so on and so forth, where they're guaranteed to get a service back up and run? Yeah, so you understand the principle of service management. It's nothing new. Most organizations have it, but what's the problem with service management? It's never revisited. It's never made part of the life cycle, so you never know if what you have is actually good for your business right now. So you need to include this as part of your review cycle and bring it into the overall life cycle of your private cloud, because then it starts making sense. Process engineering and pre-production. How many people have test systems for their production environments? So, not so bad, right? A few have it. I do realize the challenge. It's hard because it's extra cash, okay? And all I'm going to say on this particular part is, especially on the pre-production, if you can afford it, if you have the space to do it, please do it. It makes an awful lot of sense. The amount of times that people have taken so savagely interesting chances of, well, we'll just deploy it to a portion of the estate and see what happens. Yeah, a portion of the estate is still causing downtime. You're interrupting your user experience. This whole thing about private cloud is great for an infrastructure point of view, but at the end of the day, if the user experience in terms of your applications, your accessibility to these things are down, it means nothing because you're just getting bad press. Bad press means no money for IT. No money for IT, no fun stuff. And maybe a job loss if you're bad at your job. Process engineering, you cannot build a private cloud, you cannot have even an optimized data center without sitting down and documenting it. I love documentation so much. I'll work on my sarcasm later on, you know, I'll have a big sarcasm sign. But my point is that I absolutely despise documentation, but I have to do it. If I don't document the process, how the hell am I going to do this stuff here in terms of automation? How am I going to bring it into a service lifecycle? Because I'll have nothing to review. It's in my head. Great, I get hit by a bus. I know the bus scenario is a very common thing, but I was that close the other day. So you could get hit by a bus too, so be careful. Don't help old ladies across the road. Automation and orchestration. So Kevin was mentioning about orchestrators. So let's forget about tools that do it, okay? Automation makes sense, yeah? Can we agree on that? Orchestration. Do you understand what orchestration is? Ever see a puppeteer orchestrating the limbs and bodies of the body? Ever see a DJ in a nightclub and he plays a track and everyone goes mental? That's orchestrating a crowd. Now go to your IT environment. What's orchestration? Orchestrating a fix, deploying a VM, whatever your case may be, reconfiguring a switch dynamically. You're orchestrating a process, connecting to a Linux machine and doing like a secure file copy onto a Windows share for backup for some strange reason. If you want over NFS or whatever. Doing all these things opens up a whirlwind of possibility, but if you don't have a process to say that you want to back up the bloody thing, that's not tied into an SLA to say you need data that's at a particular point, how are you going to do it? You can't. So you need to have these building on each other's to be able to get to this kind of level. And if you think of it, you're going from your manual to your standardized, to your rationalized, to your full automatic data center. Wonderful bells and whistles, and 2 clouds. Not just 1, 2 clouds. Service lifecycle, I've waffled enough about service lifecycle, but the whole point about service lifecycle is that it's a life cycle. You have to go back and reiterate. You stop going to the gym, you get big belly like me. Simple as that. I go back to the gym, the belly will disappear because I'm looking after myself, I'm maintaining myself. I go stop the gym and drink lots of Coke, I go have the same problem. It's consistent. From a consultant point of view, this is something that you should be engaging from. From an internal IT admin point of view, this is something that you should be driving to the value of the business, that this makes sense. This is what's going to make and save you money, save total cost of ownership, save return on investment, all those wonderful bits and pieces that people up above my pay grade care about and want to see on financial reports. I don't care. I just want the thing to run and run effective and run well. And when a problem comes up, I want to be able to automate a fix that if it's a reoccurring thing on a Sunday night like this poor gentleman has to do, I want it to be able to reboot the server for me or do whatever those bits and pieces are. I don't want to do this manual work. I don't want to burden myself. IT is great fun when you get to play with new stuff, but it's really boring if you have to constantly do the same stuff over and over again and you can't figure out a way to fix it or test it and you always have to manually interact. Go in this process, we'll get you that. Self-service, well, we'll agree to disagree on self-service, but self-service can be good in certain environments. In a lot of large-scale enterprise, it's difficult. If you've got dev environments and things like this, maybe good. You know, it's completely up to yourselves, but it's needed as part of a private cloud. Does that make sense? Are you using twos about going to the private cloud and you know your journey and you want to give it a big hug on a Monday morning and say, I'll hand in hand walking down the street like lifelong partners? You can't get married to a private cloud, just remember that. Not even in Vegas. So I'm just going to whiz through this because this just basically just signifies where we are. So if you think about it, so we got our Windows Server stack, fantastic. We've got our AD, fantastic. We've got ADFS, so we can now start integrating in hybrid clouds to partner clouds and public clouds. Fantastic. Like, we have a great cloud story. We have work to do in certain parts, but we have a great cloud story right now. And although some pieces are a small bit tedious to get up and running, you don't take the whole thing in a big chunk, you take it in steps. This goes into what Kevin was saying earlier on about SCOM. It's little steps. You service line everything and you build it out. You build out the process and you build out the bits and pieces that make sense for that particular service line, and you feed it all into a distributed app so you're getting usable, tangible data out of the actual system instead of just 50 management packs in 10 minutes and 7,000 alerts in under 30 seconds. That's a record. It's a bad record, but it's a record nonetheless. We do VDI, application virtualization. And application virtualization, if you don't know what it is, it's a really cool about breaking that kind of bridge of where the application actually has to be physically installed on the machine and can actually just live in a bubble. Citrix Send app does it as well, and we have a flavor called AppV, which is kind of cool. Well, what you know, this is what you're here for. So, sorry? Oh, sorry, I thought someone asked a question. So, this is the same slide, but one of the things that I just wanted to really highlight before we go in is prioritize people. If you do not spend time educating the people, it's not worth a thing. If you don't, if the guys can't run the private cloud, it's fantastic. You need to spend time. This is fantastic for people if you have the right training courses and the right skills to be able to transfer this type of knowledge. Or more to be the point, if you spend all the time working on this, is that people will, if they're doing the job right with you, as they go across, will start to understand their business in a depth that they'll never understand before, because they'll have it all in front of them. They'll understand it. And so will you. So you can identify opportunities as you go along, which you need to actually engage with. Same with internal IT. Like, you guys can start on this process and you'll start to understand the reason business decisions, apart from them just being cheap, you'll actually understand the business reason of why they were cheap in the first place, because someone lost loads of money somewhere else, potentially. So go along this process. It's slow, it's a long journey. Absolutely not going to make any lies to it. It's a journey. But it's a journey, it's a goal, it's an end goal. And at each particular phase, make sure you have success criteria so that people understand you are getting places, instead of just going, this project's going on for bloody ages and blah, 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 blah. If you don't give information back to the business, one of my favorite catchphrases for the last 3 years was BI for the IT pro, so business intelligence for the IT pro. How on earth can you tell you're doing a good job if you don't have business intelligence information going back to say you're reducing costs, doing all these wonderful bits and pieces? This is the optimization in the data center. We've had X amount of downtime because we've made these improvements. How can you prove your worth? How can you prove your existence? It's not just good enough to turn up for your job every single day and think you're doing a good job. Fantastic, I can press buttons too. I can read a book too and press buttons. It's great. It's not. Give the information back to the business saying, this is the work we're doing, this is the good stuff we're doing, and this is where we're getting it. And now we need to go to this phase, so you need, at this point, to invest, and this is what it will give you. Without all this information and success rate criteria to say that this is the path you're going for, how are you going to do it? So it's worth thinking. It's a strategy. It's a long-term thing. I'm not making any mince about it. It's going to take some time. It takes planning. It takes a lot of resources. Absolutely. But at the end of it, you will have a lovely, pretty private cloud, or maybe even two. But otherwise, you'll have an optimized data center to a relative degree. Fair enough? All good? Any questions?